A man lived hidden away in the Chicago airport for 3 months. Welcome to Plain English lesson number 336. I'm Jeff. JR is the producer, and the full lesson can be found at plainenglish.com/336. A little hometown news for you today. Local news from Chicago. A 36-year-old man was found living in the airport. He had been there for 3 months. We'll tell you what we know on today's lesson. The expression today is rely on, and we have a quote of the week. Prior to COVID, there were times I felt like I lived in the airport. I ate there, I worked there, I drank at the bars there, I sometimes slept there. As part of my job, I would travel most weeks to at least one other city, sometimes 2 or even 3 other places in the same week, sometimes interrupted by snowstorms, thunderstorms, changes in schedule, canceled flights, flights diverted to other airports, and all the other hassles of regular business travel. There were times I felt like I was living in the airport. But that was an exaggeration. In fact, I was living in hotel rooms. No, I'm joking. Even that is an exaggeration. At least I had my home to return to at night after a long day or week on the road. 36-year-old Aditya Singh was living in the airport. Living at the airport for 3 months. He arrived at Chicago O'Hare International Airport, Terminal 2, on October 19th on a flight from Los Angeles. He was on his way home to India, but was too afraid to continue his journey, so he stayed within the security zone of the airport until he was caught in late January. He spent his days in the gate areas and wandering the vast terminal concourses of one of the world's biggest airports. He relied on handouts from generous strangers who bought him food from the many restaurants. The security checkpoints are closed between 11 p.m. and 4:30 a.m., but the inside, the secure area, never closes because flights arrive late and leave early. For that reason, the gate areas never technically close. Airport employees never sweep through and ask people to leave. There are places to sleep, but O'Hare purposely doesn't have many sleep-friendly areas for obvious reasons. Most seats are either staggered or have fixed armrests, preventing people from stretching out. That's all not to mention the fact that the lights are on all night, it's cold, and there are announcements playing on a continual loop. But the man may have found a place to sleep in the employee-only areas. He had access to employee-only areas courtesy of an airport employee badge. An operations manager of United Airlines misplaced his security badge on October 26th. Mr. Singh picked it up and may have been using it to move around and avoid suspicion ever since. 2 airline employees eventually confronted him and asked to see his ID. He showed the ID that the other employee had lost months before. Mr. Singh was charged with criminal trespass and theft. The Chicago Department of Aviation, which regulates security at the airport, released a statement saying that Mr. Singh did not pose a security threat while he was there. Maybe so, but it was still a grave security breach, and with passenger volumes down 60 to 70%, it's even more surprising that nobody noticed the same person day in and day out, night in and night out, not doing anything and not getting on any flights. Prior to the pandemic, O'Hare was the world's busiest airport when measured by number of takeoffs and landings, and it served 84 million passengers a year. Fingers started pointing right away. Some security experts said there was no excuse for such a breach after so much money has been spent on airport security in the last 2 decades. The judge in the case was shocked that it was possible. Others said that the security agencies are understaffed and employees are too stretched to notice individual travelers or adequately assess potential threats. One passenger had an interesting point. He said that in Europe, there's a culture of reporting people for suspicious behavior, but in the United States, people tend to leave you alone, almost to the point where individuals are invisible. Mr. Singh came to the U.S. from India to pursue a master's degree. He had been living with roommates in Orange County, California, until he decided to go back to India in October. His return journey, though, will be delayed once more. At Mr. Singh's first court appearance, the judge denied him permission to go home. He was, however, able to post bail with the assistance of a local nonprofit. The nonprofit is helping him with housing while he awaits his trial. He has been ordered to wear an electronic monitor. That's a sad story. It's true what that other passenger said, though, about feeling invisible. O'Hare is a busy airport and it's very big, but it's not that big. The corridors are long, but when it's empty late at night, it's very quiet. It's an eerie feeling being there past midnight in one of the world's biggest transportation hubs, and it feels like nobody's around. It's silent except for the white noise of announcements, air conditioning, doors opening and closing in the distance, a machine beeping here and there. But it's quiet late at night, there are some people walking around, cleaning crews, people closing up restaurants, security, obviously airport employees. And that other passenger is right. Even when there are few people, nobody really makes eye contact. Nobody really notices you. If you're dressed in a presentable manner and if you look like a traveler, people will leave you alone. They won't even look twice. And they didn't look twice at Mr. Singh. I feel really bad for this guy. He was no security threat. Yes, he was walking around with a badge that wasn't his, and obviously you can't live in the airport, but he wasn't harming anyone. If he were doing any harm, he wouldn't have been undetected for 3 months. I hope he gets home safe. Today's expression is rely on. When you rely on something or someone, you need that person or thing for support or help. You say rely on for and a noun, or rely on to and a verb. I'll give you a few examples of each. In today's lesson, you heard that a man lived for 3 months in Chicago's O'Hare Airport. He relied on the generosity of strangers to buy him meals. That means he needed the generosity of others to be able to eat while he was there. He obviously wasn't working and didn't have much in the way of resources. He relied on others for help at mealtime. He depended on that help. He needed it. Have you heard the term word of mouth advertising? It means a company relies on its customers for referrals. Word of mouth advertising means that one customer has a good experience and tells her friends. They then have a good experience and tell their friends, and so on. Some companies rely on television ads for publicity. Other companies don't need to do that. Other companies can rely on viral content for publicity. Still others rely on referrals from existing customers for their publicity. Long ago, I realized that I needed help just in case something goes wrong with my website, plainenglish.com. I'm technical enough to do some things on the website, but certainly not all. So I rely on an outside company for website support. They help in case something goes wrong. You might rely on a friend or family member for advice in a difficult situation. When you rely on someone for something, it means the other person is giving you a thing, a meal in an airport, publicity, support, advice, whatever. When you rely on someone to do something, the other person does something to help you or helps you do something yourself. I rely on JR to edit and produce the audio and video lessons. I rely on him to produce the lessons. I need him to do that. If he doesn't do that, I'm a little lost. I rely on JR to edit the audio and video lessons each week. I rely on my team of 8 translators to create the the translated content for Plain English Plus members. Here in Chicago, we have good public transportation. Although most people in the United States have access to a car for personal transportation, it's possible in big cities to get around without a car. Many people here rely on the trains and buses to get around. Without the trains and buses, they would not be able to move around the city. So we say they rely on the public transportation to get around. Donald Trump relied on Twitter to distribute his messages, and then Twitter banned his account, and he had no way to communicate with his millions of followers. He probably should have thought about what would happen if he was banned from the service he relied so heavily on. Hey, there's another way to use rely on. We can say rely heavily on if you really need something and you use it a lot. The electronics industry relies heavily on lower-cost labor from Asia to assemble their products. That means they really need that lower labor cost to make their products affordable. Without it, they'd be in real trouble. I rely heavily on a software platform called WordPress to run my website. The flexibility of WordPress helps me bring the best membership experience possible to my members. Without WordPress, I'd be in a bad spot. I couldn't afford to custom code all those functions, so I rely heavily on WordPress to run the functions of my website. I really need it. Today's quote of the week is from the book I'm reading. I told you last week it's No Filter, a book about the history of Instagram. And the quote at the beginning of one chapter is from Ashton Kutcher, the actor, who was an early adopter of Instagram. Here's what he said. Before, the internet was a reflection of humanity, but now humanity is a reflection of the internet. Indeed, it seems like it used to be that the internet had a little bit of everything in humanity. The good, the bad, the ugly. But now, the worst parts of the internet are finding their way into the offline world. Here's the quote once again. Before, the internet was a reflection of humanity, but now humanity is a reflection of the internet, says Ashton Kutcher in the book, No Filter. And that is all today. Congratulations on finishing another Plain English lesson. You know you can rely on us to bring you a new lesson each Monday and Thursday at plainenglish.com and on your favorite podcast apps. If you're ready to do a little bit more than just listen, then you can rely on us for that too. Plain English Plus will help you build your confidence in English with custom quizzes, exercises, videos, and other resources. We also do 2 live video calls a month with me and JR. We rely on Zoom for that, and they are a lot of fun. So check that out by visiting plainenglish.com/plus, Plus. We'll be back on Thursday. A famous voice in American media, radio and television has died. Larry King, the most popular voice on CNN for 25 years, was 87. That's on Thursday. See you then.